All right, just want to wish everyone a happy Equinox, and I'd like to thank Professor Basil J. Hiley, the quantum physicist, who sent me a wonderful email the other day updating me on his research work. And I did not post his email on my blog because I'm just trying to respect his privacy a bit. But normally with professors, I tend to post their emails because I consider professors to be like public intellectuals. And at any rate, I had contacted him about this new book by Harold Ottman-Spacher and Professor Dean Rickles, and Basil told me that indeed he knew Harold Ottman-Spacher. They had talked in person several times, and I don't know, at conferences or something, but they were friends already. And in Harold Ottman-Spacher's new book, he has a chapter on Basil J. Hiley and David Bohm. And so this new book is not in any library in Minnesota. So I actually ordered a copy of the book, even though it's an extremely expensive book because it's an academic book. And I suppose that's why it never got ordered in Minnesota. It's literally like $180 for one book, which is crazy. But I felt obligated to order it because I had emailed Harold Ottman-Spacher maybe 5 years ago about non-commutativity and quantum physics, because Harold Ottman-Spacher has done research on meditation and non-commutativity and quantum perception, quantum biology. And I never heard back from Harold Ottman-Spacher. But I had also discovered Dean Rickles on YouTube giving a talk about music and quantum physics. And he's a classical pianist. He's a trained professional classical pianist. And so I immediately contacted him about my non-commutative music quantum research, and he responded very positively. And so now I discover they did this book together, that Professor Dean Rickles and Professor Harold Ottmansbacher. I think he's a professor, but anyway, some kind of PhD researcher. So they also focus on Jung, which I've been studying through Peter Kingsley. I started reading Peter Kingsley's tome about Carl Jung and Pythagorean philosophy. Obviously I'm a bookworm, but with the equinox today, the natural meditation is much stronger. So there's a natural magnetic bliss in the center of the brain because of the equinox. And I just find it ironic that we have these religious holidays and people tend to take their religions very seriously without realizing that they're actually based around this natural resonance of the earth with the sun and the moon. So, like Easter's around the first full moon after the equinox. And, people, on the other hand, people want to dismiss religion as not important, but in fact, there's this secret truth of religion that can be experienced through the solstice and the equinox inside our bodies, inside our brains. And if we meditate a lot, like one time I was meditating around the solstice and I got a really strong shock in the center of my brain. And when I experienced that strong shock, then I saw a bright light, and that's because it was the solstice, because there was this natural resonance with the earth and the sun and the universe that we live in. And as much as I love being alive and in my body, which I just cherish, I mean, it's can't get any better. Like, you gotta, like, I don't want to leave my body, obviously, but it's gonna happen eventually. Everybody's gonna leave their body. And I've been watching these near-death experience reports on YouTube, and it's quite amazing that the experiences that people have are very similar to deep meditation. In fact, I commented how, well, you can have a life review during deep meditation, because this is the common experience during a near-death experience, is you are shown your life. You re-experience not just your own life, but how your life has affected the people around you or life around you. And so somebody asked me about this on in the YouTube comments that I'm always trolling. I said, so then I quoted that Andrew Zimmern book excerpt. There was the video on YouTube, but they took it down, where he bursts out crying, and he says, I can't explain it. But in his book, he explains how his spirit got pulled out of his body, and he was hovering over his body while he had a life review. And the healer was from our original human culture, the San Bushmen. And the healer had put his hand on Andrew Zimmern's heart. And I actually had, anyway, well, Andrew Zimmern, he says, like, when the healer took his hand away from Andrew Zimmern's heart, then he felt this electric shock, like, just like as strong as when you unplug something from a socket. Now that sounds metaphorical, but actually the very first spiritual healer I experienced was in 1995 with Effie P. Chow, and she held a healing demonstration, a qi talk that she charged people to attend. And I was so skeptical that, I called up and asked for half off, which is, it's terrible, but I mean, I was a, poor worker and very skeptical. And of course, this is why most people don't know anything about this stuff, because they don't want to pay money to. On the other hand, in order to do this advanced spiritual healing, people need money to support themselves, so they can, because meditation is actually really, really hard work. But the thing is how can you prove it? You can't prove it, so it's hard to get to people to pay you to do it. At any rate, so she agreed to $10, which was the half price. And I brought my my girlfriend at the time, who was my roommate, my housemate, and she didn't really feel anything because she had health problems already. But I was like apparently super, super healthy because I was vegan and bicycling all the time up these steep hills, and I was young. I was only like 24 years old, and I felt this really strong magnetic field pushing my hands apart. And when she said she had filled the room with chi, and then as the event was ending, this young security guard lady walked in, wondering what was going on in the room, because the fuse had gotten blown in the room behind us. And she just said, "I'm just wondering what's going on in here, because the fuse got blown." And everybody was pretty much gone, and Effie P. Chow didn't say anything. It wasn't like some staged. And I freaked out. I'm like, okay, let's go, And that was, we just took off, because it's like, what do you say to that? But so I mention this in part because it turns out I just looked up Effie P. Chow, and she left her body. She left her body last December, and I was just recommending her to somebody on the internet, another researcher, actually Allison McDowell. In an email, I'm like, you should really check out, like, FUP Chow. She had done a talk a couple years ago on Facebook, so it's probably still on her Facebook site. And I like FUP Chow because she encourages people to do activism, which is awesome. And she was just such a wonderful, full of love and healing energy. And Oh, she confirmed that Adam the dream healer had his third eye fully open. And so if she said he does, then I totally believe her. And and so, Adam the dream healer, he's part Native American, and he he grew up experiencing telekinesis in Canada, and he has a book about it. And then he studied traditional Chinese medicine and became a healer. I don't know. People said he took his website down. Maybe that was during the pandemic. I don't know what's happened with him. I haven't checked it out. But anyway, so I'm just trying to say Andrew Zimmern's story. It actually, if a qigong master can blow a fuse in the wiring, then obviously, if it feels like you're like that's literally as strong, you know, like 12 amps of energy. I actually did accidentally pull this lady's spirit out of her body without touching her, and that's when I was in the Wan Chi. I had my body filled with the Wan Chi, which with the what they call Nirvikalpi Samadhi in Indian yoga. And I had just finished an 8-day fast, which is the irony is that my energy was the strongest because I had been fasting and meditating. And so my body channels were very purified. And then Qigong master Jim Nance, he wasn't declared a Qigong master at the time. He was a teaching assistant, but he asked me to share my story with the other students because, he could read my energy and everything. And then this little old lady asked me to do a healing on her because this was our practice healing guild on the weekends. It was at St. Thomas University. And so she sat down in a chair and I stood next to her and I started to do the healing. And there's a certain technique to it. And I was standing to her side and she was looking forward and she couldn't see what I was doing. I mean, I put my hand over the top of her head and I pulled out by accident. I didn't try to, I wasn't like, I'm going to do this, but I didn't realize the Wan Chi was that much stronger than her body energy. And all of a sudden I felt this like heavy electromagnetic blob. That's all I can describe it as, a heavy electromagnetic blob, like a strong magnetic blob. And it just got, or as soon as I felt that get pulled out of the top center of her skull, then she just burst out bawling like immediately. And I never touched her. And after that, I'm not sure what happened because like everybody else I think was just left. Like it was really weird. And then the next thing I noticed was we were downstairs and I saw my friend from the university that we went to the event together, and I said, you're not going to believe what just happened. And then right when I said that to him, she was coming towards us and somebody had their arm around her to, we had walked downstairs. So it was like maybe, 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, I don't know. And she was still crying. She was still crying, and they had their arm around her to comfort her. And then when she saw me, she kind of smiled at me because she realized I had just made an honest mistake. And I had forgotten that our teacher, Chen Yulin, he taught to never pull energy blockages out of the top center of the skull, out of the fontanelle point where your skull fuses together, you know. And I had experienced my own fontanelle opening up from when the Wan Qi filled my body. And then Chen Yilin explained that in the level 3, that's what happens. You know, he was explaining stuff because he said, well, since somebody can see this, and anyway, I'm not even going to get into all that because I've talked about it before, but I'm just saying that this energy experience that's from our original human culture, and then it spread into India as yoga, meditation, and into China as Taoism and Buddhism and internal martial arts, and it's found in every other culture pretty much around the world, like, you know, all different names for it, but it's all originally from the San Bushman culture from over 70,000 years ago. And it's just kind of ironic that, you know, we developed modern science and we have all these conveniences and knowledge with the, you know, partial derivatives and the third derivative, you know, this fancy mathematics to develop engineering, but most of that is based on the idea of a closed system that you're trying to control and this is what that Jeremy Walker book is about, is that you know, economics is based on the steam engine where you have the governor, and when they first developed the steam engine, the person shoveling the coal had to do it at a certain time. You know, they had a certain rhythm, and if they put too much coal in, the machine would get too hot and it would explode, and it was super dangerous. And so James Watt developed a governor that would self-regulate the heat going, the steam, you know, that would go back in. And it's so once that governor was developed, then the whole concept of energy balance and equilibrium became like this obsession of science, because obviously, you know, that like it was considered a closed system based on equilibrium as balance. And so then economics modeled itself based on that idea as a closed system, while you know, as a supply and demand model. And then it conveniently ignored the second law of thermodynamics, which of course is explaining that, well, it's the steam engine is not really a closed system because you have to get the energy from photosynthesis from the sun originally, because you're burning hydrocarbons, and then so this what's fascinating about this in terms of global warming is that the thermodynamics of global warming is based on the frequency and the coherence of the frequency. So you have the sun coming into the earth as high frequency and it's more coherent, and then when it goes through the atmosphere and then radiates off of earth as infrared, then it's a lower frequency and it's no longer, you know, as coherent. And then so you lose this secret negative entropy that actually is the original secret power of the sun, the female formless awareness power of the sun. And that's what this book about this is what Peter Kingsley, this is what it's really about, is that, you know, our ancient Pythagorean philosophy was from the Eastern philosophy originally, and it was originally from you know, African, our original human culture, and it's based on this secret of the female, the dark source of the sun that Roger Penrose talks about, which is the negative entropy as formless awareness, or what he calls proto-consciousness. That's the dark energy of the universe, literally as gravitational potential due to negative frequency. So that he explains how mass originates from frequency due to the de Broglie-Einstein relation, and which is essentially, you know, the quantum physics of energy equals the Planck's constant times frequency. And then you have the Einstein most famous, you know, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. So then you can combine those together. So you have Planck constant times frequency equals mass times the speed of light squared. And so then you can derive, you know, you can solve it for frequency, and where you can, there's various things you can solve the equation for, you know. And I don't actually do the calculations, as Penrose says, you know, consciousness is not a calculation. But you have in that equation, you have this secret of negative entropy, and that's the secret of quantum biology. And Erwin Schrödinger figured this out in 1944 with his book What is Life? And Jeremy Walker does a great job of explaining this, you know, how he quotes Erwin Schrödinger's book on negative frequency or negative entropy. And so the thing is that our ancient alchemy sciences, if you want to call it a science, I mean, but they understood this concept of negative entropy as the secret of meditation. And it's kind of, I mean, it's, you know, when you look at the ecological crisis, it's really a crisis of lack of science education, because obviously you have this huge amount of power from hundreds of millions of years of hydrocarbon that's being burned, and so that power gets concentrated economically, and then they fund these think tanks that obviously then have a vested interest in spreading propaganda. And this is what, you know, Jeremy Walker's book is about. It's like why we haven't, but it's not just these think tanks, it's literally the mathematical structure of modern science assumes this equilibrium as a balance due to the symmetry of the geometric magnitude, as the irrational magnitude as the geometric continuum assumes a symmetric definition of time as a balance, a spatial rest frame. that's like this objective, use of external technology. And so this is the entropy of matter, because as soon as you make that external measurement with your left brain and your right hand, then you're increasing entropy externally, while internally being alive is based on this negative entropy from the formless awareness, which is the synchronization of the universe, with the future and the past. It's like a wormhole that we exist in, is the fifth dimension. And so Roger Penrose's point is that this is asymmetric time, so it's eternally flowing, and it has no size, so that even the whole universe, at the end of the universe, like when the universe keeps accelerating in its expansion, and then it eventually, all the matter collapses into big black holes that then collapse into each other as a singularity. But even then, that would be the second law of thermodynamics. And most people they stop there, and they have this nihilistic, materialistic view, as scientists. But, Penrose has pointed out that actually, due to Hawking radiation, and Stephen Hawking was a student of Penrose, that those black holes will eventually evaporate. But what that process of evaporation is due to quantum entanglement. And so in the quantum entanglement, you have this space-time reversal, essentially, and he says that is the Big Bang. That's what creates the next universe. But the irony is that process exists as pure photons, and the photons themselves experience no space-time. They have no sense of size. In other words, the only thing that they're experiencing is time itself, as the future and the past overlapping. And so this is why he calls it fundamental time. He got that phrase from Lee Smolin, and Lee Smolin was a student of my own professor, Herbert J. Bernstein, at the quantum mechanics class at Hampshire College. That was Lee Smolin's first quantum physics class. And so it's the lineage is quite ironic, because it's like when I took quantum mechanics from Professor Herbert J. Bernstein, and he taught us non-locality as the Dirac dance, and he laughed at me, because I had this aghast, drop jaw look, because I immediately realized this was the same secret that I had learned in music, from my music theory training, but I couldn't conceptualize the mathematics of how it was connected, and it turns out that the connection is non-commutativity. And what the Dirac dance is explaining, as Gerard de Hoof's article, "What is Life?" or light is heavy. It's basically the relativistic quantum physics is that you have this superluminal jittering, and there's a German word for it that I can't pronounce. They call it like jittering, I don't know. But Erwin Schrödinger first realized this had to be going on, and then Dirac like confirmed it. But essentially, it's like what they call the vacuum, with the virtual particles. But it's happening. It's in terms of how we could observe it, it's at the speed of light. But in terms of the actual energy going on, it's superluminal, and what the Dirac dance is telling us is that it's actually non-local. It's not. It appears to be random, but that's just based on our observation using the speed of light and linear time. But mathematically, there's a deeper musical resonance that's formless awareness with the future and the past overlapping. And this is what Alan Khan explains in his lecture to physicists in 2015. And this is what I was discussing with Basil J. Hiley, because Basil J. Hiley is he says, he's working on this new paper based on Alan Khan's lecture. But Basil J. Hiley, he's taking it into he's connecting it more back to physics. But essentially, in terms of the mathematics, it's factorization. It's what it is. It's factorization as inverse ratios, and that's precisely what music theory is. And that's why Alan Khan says that the non-commutative secret of music theory is the simplest explanation of this non-locality as the secret of how our brains work and how the universe works and how it's the origin of quantum randomness. And he says that it's precisely because we're limited to an external observation that reality appears to be random. But of course, the secret of meditation is that you tap into this by closing your eyes and listening, and the Pythagoreans originally, the Orthodox Pythagoreans, they had to do 5 years of silent listening, and the Peter Kingsley, he actually encountered the cave meditation that still goes on in Turkey, in Anatolia, which was when Greece went into Turkey, and it kind of interwoven, so that the Pythagorean philosophy really is from Turkey, what they called Anatolia at the time. And so there's still a tradition going on that's kind of like worships Ishtar or something like that, but it's based on this cosmic female awareness that you cannot see. And that's what Peter Kingsley's books are about, is that he's documenting that the pre-Socratic Pythagorean philosophers were actually worshiping the goddess, the secret of the goddess, as this meditation process, and that it's from Eastern meditation, so it's the secret of alchemy also. And I had discovered this book, Taoist Yoga, Alchemy, and Immortality, and that is the best book that explains the process, the training, if in terms of a book, but the actual experience. I got to chapter 11 in terms of what I experienced, and I didn't realize that until years later, because I was searching. I couldn't believe that I had skipped ahead, by accident in the book. So I didn't really study the book. well enough to realize that it explained what I had experienced, which was this space-time vortex. And Peter Kingsley, he describes the same space-time vortex that the Pythagorean philosophers would also experience. So I read it in Peter Kingsley's book. I think that one was probably like Reality, this book called Reality. And the thing is Peter Kingsley, he doesn't get into the music theory. He doesn't really get like my this is what my own book, the Ancient Advanced Acoustic Alchemy. It it has the training manual in there based on the small universe meditation as music theory. And so the moon and the sun are critical to that. Here's another one, here's another alchemy book right here. So this is Wang Liping. He was trained in that same tradition. He was chosen, as part of the Dragon Gate lineage, and they practiced the small universe. So he talks about the full moon, and he's probably got stuff in here on the solstice. He's got the sunrise, capturing the sun's Jing. So this is right here on solar gazing. Well, he's saying, open the eyes to watch and wait for the sun to climb above the horizon. The eyes are open just to glimpse the sun as it rises over the horizon. Yeah, so this is what I've done. Also, I've talked about this, and you see beautiful light when you do that in your third eye. You see green light and beautiful blue light, and of course the whole rainbow. And what you're doing is you're absorbing the formless awareness that's the source of that light, what they call Wan Qi, and that's basically like you're making contact through that original source. And during the equinox, we're resonating with that directly, as a whole planet. And let me see if he's got full lotus meditation. Anyway, he goes through the whole, he's got right here, he's got the small universe right here, microcosmic orbit, is explained through alchemy. So anyway, that's one book. I got plenty of books on all sorts of stuff. So as qigong master Jim Nance explains, that he just reads the original book, of the universe. Like everything else comes from that original book, and so he's able to do long distance healing. So if you want to try out the energy healing, and I had somebody recently contact me, and they tried that out. They sent a photo of themselves to qigong master Jim Nance, because I recommended, just to kind of help make the connection. And the person was on the other side of the planet, but they said they could really feel the energy, and they felt so much better. And they've been doing the alchemy meditation training and having great experiences with it. And they asked me a bunch of questions, and I'm basically like, look, don't get caught up in what I'm talking about, just I mean, because like the best meditation I had was before I ever was on the internet, before I used emails. I checked my email every day, but real quickly, but that was it. I never surfed the internet before. When I first meditated, I was internet free. I was still out of the matrix. Kind of. Okay, so and then I got all sorts of books. Here's my own book. Alchemy. I got this huge tome right there. I got plenty of books. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I'm just rambling because it is the Equinox, so it's like we can have our own little party. I can have my own party. Oh, here's Adam the Dream Healer. So, like I said, Effie P. Chow documented that he does have his third eye fully open. So I suppose he made some money off his books. He's got several books published, and they got, they're like real publishing, like the real publisher. So he probably made some money off it. Anyway, he got into studying, quantum physics and all that. There's this one, the superluminal universe. So they connect quantum biology with cosmology. So this is great, So how can you complain about that? They're getting into the microtubules. They show the microtubules right there. And then they talk about the super radiance. This is their hypothesis that Anirban Bandiopane just corroborated with actual research, like actual experimental research. He proved that this super radiance is actually going on in the tubules, the microtubules, and the tubulin inside the microtubules. In this way, each tubulin, they misspelled tubulin. It's tubulin. They have it spelled as tubulin. That's weird. But this guy's Japanese, so neither of them have English as their first language. So here's the tubulin. Let me see if I can. I can't get my phone to. Yeah, sorry, I didn't get my phone on that. I don't know what that's. Oh well. So it's all about the Stuart Hameroff, Jack Tuzinski, the Emilio del Guidance. He's not alive anymore. Yeah, so this is like holographic. This is actually a really cool book. And here's the mathematics of it. I have to study that a bit. Okay, thanks so much, and happy Equinox.